Hi, I'm Eason, and welcome to Metal Monday, where I talk about albums new and old that I recommend you listen to so you can start your week off right. Now in partnership with Tempelores magazine at Tempelores.com, home to the craziest bunch of metalheads that you are ever going to meet. Link in the description down below, please give them a visit. When I go out to discover new artists or find new music, as much as I love finding things that I might be looking for in particular, I also love finding stuff that I did not expect to find, and being fucking blown away by it. Such was the case when I stumbled upon a band named Vagina Witchcraft, and for some weird reason, instead of clicking on the second track, which is usually what I do because I want to skip all that ambient intro bullshit that I know I'm going to encounter 9 times out of 10, I clicked the intro. What I ended up doing was sitting there listening to poet and activist Kayla Fernandez just basically pour their heart out, reciting their poem, I Am Black History in the Making, in what I later learned to be the June 5, 2020 rally Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg. And when I waited around for the music, it ended up being completely outside the realm of my expectations, and something that I could not believe was not covered in every available avenue across the board. So ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between and everyone outside, this is Vagina Witchcraft's Vagina Witchcraft.
I am the fucking devil!
The basic sound of Vagina Witchcraft can be summed up as traditional doom that takes cues from stoner doom and sludge metal while also adding elements of noise rock and hardcore of all things on top of that. It's very difficult to categorize the band's sound as being anything other than doom, but just stopping there would be doing them a bit of a disservice. Sure, at a most basic level, you have your fuzzed out, down-tuned guitars churning out these really groovy, Sabbath-worshipping, highly memorable riffs backed up by fat, thick, ugly, and fucking mean bass, if I'm being honest, that sort of fucks your shit up. All of this laid over extremely nice drumming that knows when to go all improv, provide adequate syncopation, and also knows when to provide just heft and backing to the guitars and the bass. And then you have the vocals all in a world of their own, which I'm not going to get into right here because they deserve their own section. Another aspect of Vagina Witchcraft's sound comes from the fact that this thing has been recorded live, and of course it has been mixed and mastered, but luckily both the mix and the master have kept the feeling of being in a live performance in mind, and the result is fucking gorgeous. This is wonderfully raw, it is visceral, it is in your face, and it is very real, with all the feedback noise, the dust and the filth still caked over all the equipment. It creates the feeling of being in a very well-organized and well-mixed rehearsal space with the band, or being in a very small, very intimate venue with a small stage where the band is just playing the album to you, start to finish. The type of sound constructed by the production of this album yields 2 primary benefits for it. Firstly, it allows for the musical detours that the band takes outside the realms of doom to shine through way more clearly and way more efficiently than they would have in a well-polished, well-rounded studio recording kind of setting. For example, there is the second half of the first musical track, Mercury, that goes into a territory that I can only describe as being stoner punk. It is a stoner rockish, really fast-paced riff, accompanied by appropriate bass and drumming, of course, that has adequate amounts of punk in its DNA. Other examples include the song Pyro with its surf rock influences, with the band providing you with these jumpy, danceable, folksy, really jaunty riffs with as much raw strength and heaviness as they can muster, or the undulating, major scale, upbeat, insanity-inducing riffage of the track Starting Over, which, with its upbeat tone, clashes greatly with the dismal and fucking depressing lyrics, to say nothing of their delivery. And then there are moments like the track No Sinners, in which the band incorporates lots of desert and psychedelic rock influences onto their already tripped out, very depressing and very desolate sludge metal, to say nothing of the showstopper of a finisher, Always, that pulls out all the stops, brings you everything that you can ever ask for from an album like this, with adequate amounts of doom, sludge, and noise rock mixing, with even a section where the guitars and the bass decide to incorporate these heavily technical, finger-picked arpeggio-style improvisations on top of what is already going on. Yeah, I'm aware of the fact that that was the entire track list, and I'm very sorry for the spoilers, but the fact remains that while each of the tracks on Vagina Witchcraft adhere to the central tenets of the music, namely the stoner and sludge-influenced doom tracks, providing you with lots of groovy, doomy riffs, they also, each of them, feature unique moments, unique only to those tracks, where they go off into different directions, which contributes greatly to keeping the album varied, engaging, and interesting. The second benefit yielded by the sound Vagina Witchcraft have constructed is the fact that while still remaining meticulously written, each of the tracks on the album still seem to retain a kind of improvisational tone that you are very likely to experience in a live concert setting that you are not at all likely to hear in a recorded album. And the primary form this takes is the guitars starting out in harmony with the rest of the music, namely the drums and the bass, but then gradually separating from the pack and just going off on their own. In fact, the earliest example of this happening is in the first musical track, Mercury, where the guitars introduce the riff, but then quickly move away as the bass and the drums carry it into improvisational territories. The song Pyro also features a moment where the guitars gradually evolve away from the rest of the music, as if separating by mitosis. However, the jam session-like quality brought into these tracks does not actually come into full fruition until the closing two tracks, No Sinners and Always. And in fact, the moment on No Sinners is such that the guitars sort of tease this sort of deviation, but instead of going off alone, they decide to reach in, grab the bass, and drag it along. This creates an environment where the guitar and the bass suddenly decide to veer off in a different direction, and the rest of the music follows suit. And as for Always, that particular song is characterized by moments where the band members give each other the space to display their skill. This is kind of akin to a live show moment where each of the band members are given ample space to play solos on their own, and it comes off as a wonderfully festive, vibrant, and live experience on a record. So that was all about the instruments. What about the vocals that I said deserve their own section? Well, here I'm going to do something a little bit different, because it is impossible to talk about the vocals in Vagina Witchcraft without also talking about the lyrical content, both of which are at the very heart of this album, both of which form its very soul. Firstly, Kayla Fernandez's vocal style is very reminiscent of hardcore and crust punk bands. This is where the hardcore influences that I have mentioned are brought into the mix. Their vocal style consists of really sharp, really powerful, and highly emotive screams. There is some singing on the album. There are some moments on No Sinners where they actually indulge in a little bit of clean vocals, but overall the vocals are a far cry from the normally clean and impassioned tones you would expect from a doom album. And the twist is, this type of abrasive screaming is integrated extremely well into the doom underpinnings of the music, both by virtue of the production and by the amount of emotion injected into every single scream. And what is being screamed about? Well, if the fact that the opening poem is titled I Am Black History in the Making has not clued you in, Vagina Witchcraft is a very political album. However, that does not detract from the fact that it is also a very deeply personal album. In fact, I would say that the central theme of the lyrics is that the personal is the political, and the political is therefore the personal. I mean, just by way of starting, the first lines that you hear on the very first musical track, Mercury, are, I am the fucking devil and I've come to do the devil's work, which I find to be very interesting, especially since I considered the devil to be the subversion of the status quo. The devil is only evil if you consider consider the status quo to be virtuous and righteous and therefore good. However, the type of devil that Fernandez is out there proclaiming to be is instead the subversion of something that alleges itself to be righteous and virtuous and therefore good. In fact, this theme of rebellion, of rising up against both the status quo and the defenders of it, constantly telling you that they are one thing when they are in fact either the exact opposite or not even close to what they claim to be, runs through the album, creating what I believe to be its central theme, which can be summed up with this: an injury has been done. This injury has not been done one time. This injury has not been done through a single event. This injury has been done over and over and over again. And no matter what form or shape it took, its central motivator, the idea behind it, the hatred behind it, remained the same. And every time this injury has been done, it has cut to the bone, which forms the central anguish that is embedded into the very heart of Vagina Witchcraft's album and Kayla Fernandez's lyrics. Other lines in Mercury, like "I am the fucking dead," or more poignantly, "I am everything you try to take away from me," or the central repeated line of Pyro, "Set me on fire so I can burn myself into your memory," or the hypnotically recited oft-repeating line in No Sinners, "I am the danger down in the basement," which sort of takes on a different tone if you factor in the little bit of information that the band actually rehearsed and recorded most of these tracks in a basement, give you a little taste, a little idea as to more overtly political lyrics that you're going to find on this album, which is not the only kind of lyrics that you're going to find on Vagina Witchcraft, because as with all other things, there is variety in the lyricism of Kayla Fernandez. Other themes that support the central one include depression, mental anguish, and being trapped in a situation where you cannot help but take on more and more damage as you just try to move along. So yes, so it's not all sunshine and roses, and it is very rough around the edges, but Vagina Witchcraft's album is nothing if not poignant, if not striking, if not powerful, if not honest, and if not magnificent. I mean, like I said, I'm very surprised that this album didn't appear in any of the best of lists that I have seen. Like, it definitely deserved a spot in pretty much all of them. And as for the question of who I would recommend this to, if you're a Doom fan, you should be all over this already. If you are a fan of Doom adjacent genres, if you like Stoner Doom, if you like Sludge, if you like I Hate God, for instance, which Fernandez and the rest of the band are fans of, you should definitely give Vagina Witchcraft a chance. If you like your music more in the hard and fast and more dissonant variety, this may not exactly be your cup of tea, but if you're in the mood for something a little bit different, I would highly advise you to check it out. As always, there's a Bandcamp link in the description down below. Why don't you go click that, listen to it, and then come back and tell me what you thought about it, and please consider supporting the artist. If you're already a fan of Vagina Witchcraft, why don't you let me know what you think of them, how you found them, or anything else really. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe, as it always helps. And as always, it's Eason. Peace out.